So I'm David Gray with RSA's Advanced Cyber Defence team. I'm going to talk to you today about metrics and how they're going to help you with your SOC operations and to improve your detection capabilities. So first thing I want to cover off really is today I'm probably the only guy here that's not going to be talking to you about sales or trying to sell you something, so you can chill for half an hour. That said, all the RSA sales guys will kill me if I don't mention the fact that everything I'm going to talk about here can be monitored and reported within RSA's NetWitness SecOps appliance, which is awesome. So moving on, metrics. So I just wanted to throw up some interesting stats at the beginning to show you why metrics matter. So all of these figures we're seeing up here, I think everybody's well aware of. I mean, can you honestly imagine if PlayStation didn't have, PlayStation didn't have anything in place to actually record what is happening when they're breached? What kind of status they would be in? Configure. I wrote this slide deck up about a week ago, and ever since I did it, this figure's been sort of bouncing around in my head. My background, I'm a sort of malware and forensics guy, so that figure, as of today, has been eating away at me. So just before I actually did the presentation, finished it off yesterday, I went away and did a little bit more digging. So as of yesterday, this is the global share for all the OS variants that are out there. XP's still got just under 10%, which is still more than all of Apple's products together and Linux. That also is a very good metric for you as a business, because if you are looking at your own network to see what devices you've got on there, that's your attack surface. So once you've got an idea of what you've got there, then you've got an idea of what you're actually defending on your network. And then lastly, we've got ransomware, which is obviously pretty big in everybody's viewpoint at the moment. So, metrics. Metrics actually help us do our job better. Peter Drucker was a business evangelist in the 60s and 70s. And he coined this phrase, metrics matter. As it stands at the moment, everybody's really only interested in this one statement, have my systems been compromised? But if you have been compromised, you're absolutely guaranteed to get a whole list of other questions from the board, as in how many machines, where, what departments. So you better have a whole list of other metrics that support this afterwards. So how are we actually going to record this? How are we going to establish whether we're getting better at doing our jobs? Have we got a certain level of risk that we're happy to accept on our networks? How many machines that we know are vulnerable but we can live with? It's all about understanding what we actually have on our networks. So, metrics from the business world. They've been doing this for years. These are all the sort of figures that we're all well aware of, even if we're not all businessmen. And probably one metric that we're all especially passionate about at the moment is this one. I mean, it all matters to us, doesn't it? Even Facebook. So looking at us from cybersecurity world, what should we really be looking for? So first of all, our actual systems, which ones that we actually have on the network, what we have available to us, and what we should be monitoring. The actual network itself, how much network traffic we've got, which parts of the network it's going over. I mentioned Configure earlier, which was ancient as far as IT is concerned. However, that was an SMB attack, which escalated the amount of traffic that was on everybody's networks at the time. So, whilst network utilization isn't necessarily a security metric, it's still something that we would be interested in. Obviously, incident management is pretty much what we're all looking at here today, as in all of our security tools, what they're reporting on, what are true positives, false positives, where we're seeing the attacks, that sort of thing. Managers really want to know where their dollars are being spent, what systems are most effective, that sort of thing. Network vulnerability metrics. Just exactly, I had that slide up earlier, configured, that had all the actual systems that are out there on the internet at the moment. Those kind of metrics that give us the specifics of the types of machines, the vulnerabilities, most definitely that is what we're going to be interested in as a security organization. And finally, threat intelligence metrics. This is looking at the bigger picture of the attacks that are actually happening to any organization, so you can actually start to pick out trends when you're being attacked, which organizations are attacking you, that sort of thing, which you can then feed back into your analyst team to actually assist them in doing their job. So I'm going to start off with just giving you a sort of overview of why we're interested in metrics themselves. So first of all, they give us a situation overview, so we actually understand what the threat is that we're facing as an organization. What's happening on a Monday, on a Tuesday, as each day of the month goes by, exactly what we're happening on our network. Where we're vulnerable, what types of attacks we're seeing. If anybody's wondering why we've got a map up there of the conflict that we've got in Ukraine at the moment, it's an attack conflict. It's exactly the same as what any organization is going to be facing. You as the SOC analysts and the managers are effectively generals on your network. You have to understand exactly what's happening to be able to rapidly respond and target the actual attacks themselves. So metrics, they give us actual performance of how our team is getting on. What's happening with the entire SOC program. One of the things we always find is when you start recording how analysts and how the SOC performs, once people are actually being recorded, they get better at it, because who wants to be the guy that's mucking up, who's making a mistake? So things get better. They also, it improves your actual SOC staff. They become more diligent because they're, as I mentioned, they're aware that what they're being, the actual job that they're doing is being monitored, and you can see progress as they're continuing. Now, my last point there says that you can identify staff that aren't necessarily pulling their weight. I would probably change that round more and say it gives you an opportunity to actually identify the staff that need more help, where you can actually start looking at additional training courses to be able to assist your staff that haven't got the necessary skill set for whatever reason to be able to do the job. Throughout this whole presentation, I'm going to keep coming back to this. It gives you your trends, so you can actually understand what's happening on your network and when it's happening, which is going to assist with planning. So our controls. What do we want to use metrics for in this case? Well, patch management. We need to understand how many vulnerable hosts we've got on the network, what types of hosts and what the actual vulnerabilities they are, so that we can accept a business risk, or we can actually see about mitigating those with the various tools that we have at our discretion to be able to lower that attack surface. For the actual incidents, obviously we need to know where we have any gaps within our coverage. And as far as the management is concerned, when we talk about bang for the buck, this is where you want to identify which of your security devices are actually giving you the most effective response as far as detection and remediation. So if you have an IDS system that's detecting everything, that you're monitoring your metrics and recording as each actual incident is going on, you can actually see over the course of a year that that particular device is giving you value for money. But if you've got a firewall that the attacker's just getting straight past every single time, then obviously you've got a business decision to make over that particular appliance and the vendor, and whether there's other options that you have for changing and getting a better bit of equipment in there. So also from this point of view, we want to look at business units. Do we have, so we have over many business units different training plans, so phishing attacks, internal training, corporate training plans that people have to go through. But is that message getting across? Do we actually have our each individual business unit? Have we got a standard across the whole business, or have we got some sections that are actually doing a better job than others? And if that's the case, why? We can actually go out to individual parts of the business and actually ask them the why, and then we put that back into our training deployment plan. So accountability. I already touched on the analyst performance. But we can also use that not only within the SOC and the cyber defense program, but when we have our detection and we've passed it off to other parts of the company, whether it's IT ops or whether it's something that law enforcement and HR involved in, then you have that point where you stop the clock within the SOC, and then you actually start monitoring what's happening as the incident is carried on by other organizations. And that assists them with their actual timescales as well as things progress. So, yeah, just cover that point. What I was mentioning there about the actual training, if we loop this back into the actual staff performance, and you start making an actual competition out of it. So yeah, one business unit is doing fantastic, another one's not. You can actually start almost doing a leaderboard within your company for the actual SOC detection capabilities, if you will, or your actual cyber defense over the company, and actually start challenging your staff themselves to become heroes for your company. If it's a competition, people inherently want to win, so it becomes a challenge, and it's just something else to think about. It definitely works. So metrics, if we're recording everything, it's going to show us the amount of logs that we're recording, the amount of packets, everything that actually directly affects the SOC itself, the staff that you have working there, how many incidents that the staff are having to respond to, and as a result, it also shows us where we can actually hire new staff to fill those places. It shows us when we have peaks in traffic. If you're running a 24/7 SOC, but all your attacks are happening first thing on a Monday morning when everybody's coming back into work, then maybe you can have less staff on a night shift and actually have more guys and girls working during the daytime to be able to respond to the normal daytime attack traffic. There we go. So ahead of myself. So yeah, we can target our analysts to the actual peak times that we're seeing the attacks. Where we have issues where we've got too much traffic, that we don't have enough analysts to be able to do those detection capabilities, this is also going to highlight that for us as well. And it's not just the analysts, it's also where We don't have content engineers are producing enough detection capability because there's too many alerts and they're not able to respond quickly enough to be able to push out the sufficient detection capability to pick up the next set. And it also identifies those types of equipment that literally is no longer fit for purpose because it can't keep up with the volume of traffic. And I mentioned earlier about the bang for buck, where we have certain devices that are no longer fit for purpose because the attack's just gone straight past it. That's something we definitely want to look at so we can actually get the right equipment in place. And this is the best bit for you because metrics are running in the background. You've decided at the beginning what you want to do. It's all evidence-based. And this you can take with you to the board when you have a requirement for extra money. And the first thing the board's going to ask you is why. So you have all the evidence at hand to be able to show exactly what your requirements are. So this is my last little part on the sort of why we want metrics. I'll move on to the actual a metric schema in a second. So we've been running a metric scheme across our company. We think we're doing fantastic, but are we? We need to understand whether we are doing any better or worse than our competitors or our peers. So actually reaching out and touching other organizations within your sort of peer influence is a definite requirement to understand whether you're doing better or worse. You want to see whether your spending budget is equated to the same as the other organizations are as well. That again will work in whether you're doing a better job for the money for what you have there. A lot of this, if you're required to have compliance for PCI, DSS, or any of the other compliance requirements, a lot of this information you should already be collecting anyway. So it's just a matter of identifying all the key information that you need separate to that to build out the rest of your program. And ultimately, you are going to be able to check whether your SOC is functioning in the way that you as a company want to do it against a standard benchmark that you have set at the beginning of the SOC program. Right, so that's the background to it. So where do we actually start if we're going to start with our metrics? So we're talking about a top-down approach. So if there's any organization out there, you should have a mission statement for the whole organization. So in this case, we've got one here that says that we want to deliver early detection, rapid response, and the cyber protection for the ACME industries. So that mission statement gives us these three key areas that we have to work on as a business. So obviously the mission statement and what you as a SOC or cyber defense organization are planning on doing, this is absolutely key to it within your mission. And then each individual section that you have within your SOC should have its own mission. So your threat analysts, investigators, content engineers, and in this case, which one is it? Threat Intel team have their own specific mission that they have to fulfill themselves. That leads on to the critical success factors for the actual team themselves. How they actually know that they are functioning to the best of their capability and what is the line in the sand as far as the organization is concerned as being success. Once we've got that planned in, it should be the same for each of the teams as well, which also support later on success factors when the team's doing the job right. And the standard sort of ones that hopefully we should all be aware of are KPIs and our performance indicators. So performance indicators are just literally number of alerts. You know, it's the very baseline type metric that you can get. So how does that sit all together? So that's our sort of mission tree. And underneath that, we would have then our KPIs and our PIs. If we're looking at from all the different teams, we have our mission. Each individual team, they have their critical success factors, and then all the metrics that go into supporting those underneath, which we have on the next slide. So that doesn't look like a lot, but when you start putting that into some of your monitoring and your logging capabilities, those metrics add up rapidly and can put a sort of a strain on some of the systems. So right, let's just have a look at one specific one. So right, here we have a graph for a number of alerts over a couple of months. Pretty simple to understand. We can all see, yeah, we've had a bit of a peak there and it's all dropped off towards the end of the year. So that's shown as our trends. But we need to dig into it a little bit more. So why did we have a peak there? Did we get a new detection capability that actually detected more evil on our network? Or have we hired new staff? Are we doing our job better? So this one, is this because we're doing the job better? Or because the attackers have changed their tactics? Do we need to actually look at what we're doing ourselves? I mean, from such a simple little graph, you can see that there's a lot more questions that we can be asking ourselves. And finally, I was talking about the benchmarking earlier. So we've got a couple of hundred, in some case just under 1,600 alerts there. Is that good? Is that bad? What is our sector? Do they have the same sort of numbers as we do, or are we just really, really bad? That's something that's really key to understand. It affects the whole cyber program. So that particular metric that we're showing there, that would come under the KPI for the actual monitoring team. So that would be their it would build into their success factors for the monitoring team itself. Right. What do we do with information? As management, we want to be able to make some noise about how everybody's getting on. We want to show how the actual SOC itself is improving, and if we have issues, what those issues are. And we want to be able to reward the analysts. If you can see a trend, we talked earlier about improving people, but if you have stars within your organization and you can see it from what are coming through from your metrics, then you're already highlighting who's going to be your next senior analyst, who's going to move on to your malware team, and it all comes out of the numbers. We covered this a little bit earlier before. We can target where we're going to get the best value from our security program. Do we need everything that we already have at the moment? What is working for us? What isn't working for us? Again, security controls, what's actually working, what policies that we have that are preventing attacks, and where we need to improve as an organization, and where we actually need to spend some more money to actually plug those gaps. So for the operations team, they're going to be interested in the actual attacks themselves, what the attack trends are, if there's a particular push towards phishing attacks or to DDoS or whatever. If you want to start monitoring this so that you can actually take that step forward as you can see that sort of wave of attack traffic happening so that you're prepared for it. We want to make sure that our analysts are performing the best they can do, but we also want to make sure that we as an organization are meeting all of the service level agreements that we have in place. And then we move on to threat intel team. I've been saying all the way through this presentation about trends. So threat intel team is probably the most important one here for that, actually monitoring the trends. Heat maps, something that threat intel teams have been using for years, is to be able to identify trends that are happening on your network. So that simple graphic there, we've got one attack that seems to be happening pretty regularly on the 3rd of the month. Although why we didn't have one in February, that would be something that the threat intel team would be interested in. We also have another one in February that was attacking us every other day. So we could expect that on the 11th, we would be expecting another attack from them. So it's something that the actual SOC analysts would be prepared for and would be looking for. Right, I'll start to wind down this presentation now. But we ultimately, what we're wanting to do is take our detection from where we've already been compromised. We're going to want to be able to start picking it up when they deliver the attacks. But ultimately, we're literally wanting to push it all the way down the attack chain. And that's where threat intel, metrics that are all coming out of that, and your SOC your SOC team are going to be able to produce for you. So a visual representation of this is day one when a SOC turns on the monitoring capability. You're going to expect to have a bad day. Once we've got our program in place and we've got a good malware team, forensics team, threat intelligence, and they're all working together, you can actually start to see the metrics changing around. And this is ultimately the picture you're wanting, where you're getting all the detection capabilities as soon as possible without actual compromises on your network. And where you have got compromises on your network, you know exactly how long it's happened for, and you're reducing the time scale that they're actually on your network. So this one I've just talked about, this comes under threat intelligence, and that would be their specific success factor, is identifying attack trends for threat actor groups. Only about 2 slides left, and then I think we've got a break. So dashboards, pretty much every appliance that's out there at the moment will have a dashboard of some manner or means that's going to show you the trend for the attacks on your network or on your perimeter. But what's most important for that is that it's tailored to the individual that is looking at it. So there's no point in a SOC analyst having all the high-level trend activity for the whole organization. It's not what he or she needs to see. And by the same viewpoint, the SOC manager and the CISO don't need to have a view of every single attack and priority of the attacks as they happen. They're looking more at the actual global picture for what's happening on their network. And a final point for dashboards, it's great having the information in front of you, but if you can't actually click into it and get to the actual underlying facts themselves, it's pointless. So you should make sure that whatever product you purchase will do that for you, which SecOps does, but that's another issue. Right, reports, sorry. Reports are pretty much a sort of a historical thing that we still live with. They're pretty much required these days for compliance reasons or for building into other reports and documents for the sort of C-level, CISOs and the like. But I want to step away from metrics for a second and have another look at reports. So one of the things that RSA has been talking about for the last couple of years is this whole be the hunter thing. Reports give you a little glimmer if you actually start looking at your attack traffic into reports. So spitting out how your phishing attacks, the from addresses, the received by, all the sort of intelligence back-end type thing. And then producing that in sort of a report format allows SOC analysts to be able to sort of trawl through those and look for what's abnormal. We're very, very good at doing that as human beings. I mean, I take it everybody can spot the black sheep there. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one. But the one on the left is slightly different. Not quite so obvious. So all the ones that's circled in green are compromised systems on an actual network. very, very obvious to sort of stand out when you have a look at it. And that's pretty much me. So there's a couple of bits and pieces on there if you're interested in getting some more information about metrics. The top one is an excellent book, well worth a read. The Veris framework is the one that's supported in the RSA products themselves. That's pretty much straight out of the box. And that's it. Thank you for your time.